the best thing a manager, a C-level person, a VP could do to work with their catalysts is sort of open up that network, sort of push catalysts to use their networks, to use what they're really good at, to build bridges, ask them, challenge them to do some of these things.
I'm Shannon Lucas.
And I'm Tracy Lovejoy, and we're the co-CEOs of Catalyst Constellations, which is dedicated to catalyzing innate change makers to accelerate positive change.
This is our podcast,
Move Fast, Break Shit, Burn Out,
where we highlight catalysts that are creating amazing change in the world. And I am thrilled to have time with one of my favorite people in the world, Justin Lokitz. He's the author of best-selling books like Design a Better Business, Business Model Shifts, and he's also a startup entrepreneur and advisor. He's currently the chair and professor of the MBA in Design Strategy program at the California College of Art. And he's also the founder and CEO of Plantfully Systems. He has more than 2 decades of experience designing and executing strategies for large multinational corporations, as well as several startups, including his own. Again, thanks for being with us today, Justin.
Thanks so much for having me. You're also one of my favorite people, so it works out pretty well.
Thank you. Yes, it's a mutual admiration society. There's a lot to unpack in terms of what you're doing, but let's just start off with how you relate to the concept of catalyst.
Yeah, so of course I also brought my Catalyst book with me.
Love it.
First of all, when you read me the definition of catalyst, now this is many years ago, and I went to a retreat, a catalyst retreat. I relate in a bunch of different ways, but I'd say primarily like I'm an idea guy, and I've always thought of myself as an idea guy, but like quick coming up with something and some idea that happens from some other context or something happening in the world, but then also being able somehow to connect that thing back to some data, some information that I have and relay that on to someone. I think part of that is also just, I call myself a connector. I think most of my Catalyst friends, in fact, all of us, I'd say, we call ourselves connectors because, even my wife, who's certainly a catalyst as well, she might not be as outgoing as me, but she knows so many people. And when someone needs something, she's like, oh, I got you. I'll connect you with this person or this thing, or I read this article, let me send that thing to you. So I think of myself as a crazy connector in all kinds of different contexts and realms and industries. And I think the last point I'd make about, how I think of myself as a catalyst and how I would describe, my catalyst self is that I'm a communicator. And so when it comes to pitching things or trying to get an idea across, or maybe trying to persuade someone to do something, I'm pretty tenacious, and I end up finding that I often get my way in something, but often also to my own detriment. And, and I think there's a good side and bad side of that. So anyways, that's who I am as a catalyst for sure.
Thanks. Yeah, I love the thread of the connecting the dots, connecting the ideas and connecting the people. I mean, it's so crucial to the work that we do. And I just want to share it with our listeners. Like, we had a conversation early on about what it means to be a catalyst. And you're like, I don't know so much about the action part, but the activating the people and connecting all those things and getting that sort of snowball started is such an important part of being a catalyst. It's not about being in the trenches the whole way through necessarily. So yeah, you're an ultra catalyst in that perspective, Justin, with your ideas and other people's ideas, right?
Exactly. I'm a big starting guy. I'm not always the big finishing guy. Yes.
Well, we'd love to hear about what you've been starting recently. Like what juicy challenges are you working on as a catalyst?
Yeah. I'll give you a little context in the background here. So, now I think really a couple of years ago, really at the end of or beginning of the pandemic for that matter, I decided that I was going to stop doing just one thing at a time, because one thing wasn't enough. And I was going to sort of stop running some larger than what I have now, but a larger sort of consulting business. And before that, I had been working in big tech for a long time, Autodesk and Oracle and a few others. I decided to stop those things so that I could actually do a bunch of other things, which is to say I wanted to diversify my income. I wanted to start my own companies and brands. I wanted to help other people do their companies and brands. And I basically just wanted to sort of be a solopreneur as much as possible and, bring in income from different places, work on a bunch of different things, and, use my brain in as many ways as possible and really stay excited about things. So all that to say, what I do today, there's maybe too much, there's a lot, but what I'm focusing on today is, you sort of held up the product. Plant Fleece Systems is, yep, thank you, I should have brought one. I've got a direct-to-consumer supplements business. And I started that, and I focus on that because I'd never, ever in my life, except having been a consumer forever, I've never in my life worked on a consumer product. So I thought, okay, what better way to learn how to do that than just to do it? It's been really challenging, really fun. But I've been focusing my energies certainly on that, at least, half the time. I'm also, I'm a professor, so I love teaching. It's probably one of my favorite things to do. And I teach in this awesome MBA program, and the same one that I went to. And what's super cool about that and putting my energy towards that is I get to, sort of work with and roll up my sleeves and play with students that were me 10 years ago, but I also get to learn all, who everyone is. And I get to sort of use that dot connecting to connect people all the way back 15 years when this program started. I know everyone at this point. I don't know if there's anyone else who knows them as deeply as me, because I'm an alum of the same program, a professor, and now also the interim chair of this program. And so I've been spending time there as well. Outside of that, I've been doing a lot of startup advising. Because I just love helping people. And again, I love context switching between things and connecting dots between things. So, if those two things weren't enough, I've also spent, 10 hours or so a week working on with different startups, some of which I have a little stake in, or have made a small investment in, or have some sweat equity in, and other ones is just the right thing to do because they're awesome people and they just need help. And so I spend a bunch of time doing that as well, and trying again to connect the dots between them and helping people by bringing other people into their worlds and leaving them alone. And yeah, so that it's everywhere.
That's it, Justin. That's all you're up to. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. It's maybe not enough.
I want to tap into some of the lessons learned, but I do want to do a plug for that MBA program at CCA, because everyone that I have met who has been through that program, and I've hired a couple of people who have been through that program, are just the type of people that organizations need right now. It's such a great blend of skills. So I'm glad that you're pouring so much love and heart energy into that. But so what are some of the challenges that you're running into as you're trying to balance all of that goodness in the world?
Yeah, I think I mentioned it a bit ago, I'm a starter. My biggest challenge at the moment are really actually Plant Fleece, probably the biggest one. My actual product, the one that, I'm building because I wanted to generate real revenue streams for me. And it's something I started, and, now I have someone helping me and sort of a co-founder, my friend Brian, who's our chief creative officer, it's two of us. But what I've learned about myself in that is that I'm really good at catalyzing things. I'm really good at starting the fire. I mean, I'm a pyromaniac when it comes to fire starting. The challenge is, and I can stoke that fire. The challenge is actually getting in there and keeping that fire going in a longer term way is really challenging for me, because the way my brain works as a catalyst is just idea after idea after idea. And I can see the long term, I can see where it can go with all these ideas or concepts stacked together. But actually managing the day to day to make that happen is a lot of it's challenging for me, because I want things to go faster. I want things to actually just work. So yeah, that's what I found really challenging about it. Certainly really fun as well to learn about that and learn about myself along the way. Yeah.
How do you manage around that?
I think the thing that I learned about myself is, because of that, I've learned to figure out how to ask for help and pay for help. So I've managed around. So the Plant Fleece Systems one, if that's one of the main challenges that I'm working on today, I've learned to say, okay, Justin, you could learn all this stuff and you probably would be good at much of it. Maybe not great at all of it, but you'd be good at some of it. But why waste your time trying to be good at something that you're interested in, but you really just want to see the thing go, when you could hire someone or have a friend come in and help that really likes that sort of thing. And so I've really learned to either ask for help or pay for help. And that has really helped. I Plantfully I've got two sides. I got a direct consumer Shopify site and an Amazon side. And so I ended up hiring a company and negotiating for a really awesome rate for them to help me build and run that business. And they have shared incentive, and they'll take some of my revenue in that, which is awesome, just a couple percent. But it's like, oh, thank God I have a company that's willing to help me with this thing that I can also fire if they're not doing great work. But also I've learned, you know what, let go, ask for help, stay in charge, but don't feel like you have to do every single thing, because you're probably not going to get it done that way. Yeah.
It's such an important lesson for Catalyst. It really is. And how do you manage your energy around all of those different things?
Yeah. We were talking a little bit earlier about it. I think, a couple things. One is I am really good at like renewing and recharging. I work out every day. I've got a good exercise regime, which, is every morning. I try to take walks in the afternoon with the dog. I sit in the sauna typically just about every day. And those things really definitely help to sort of, those would be the bread and with the meat being all the other stuff in the sandwich of the day. But I also, I'd say what I've found with doing all these different things and having my fingers in all these different pies is that I am finding my energy levels. We talked about it before, it's like endorphin spikes all day long, because I get really excited about a startup, get really excited about something going on with the MBA, I get really excited about something in Plantfully, and these spikes all day definitely take it out of me I wake up at 5:30 in the morning. So by 3:30 in the afternoon, I'm like, I'm not sure I have anything left.
Yeah.
Leave my laptop open. I'll take the dog for a walk, and laptop's still open, and I sort of glance at it sideways, like, can I go back to you and do anything? No, I'm not sure I can.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to be better at also just being okay with that, being okay with, I'm done. I've done a ton of work here, and I've done a ton of great work. There's still plenty to be done, but I don't have to do it all right now. And I know I can get it done tomorrow. So yeah.
Super key takeaways. So we go back to the first one, asking for help, which is also an energy management thing, because you don't have to do it all by yourself. And also, when you're not playing to your strengths, it can be extra draining. It's not that you can't do it. It's just that it's more draining.
Right.
And you have one of the most disciplined rejuvenation, self-compassion practices really that I know, which I know plays a big role in your success. And then the interesting thing is, when we were writing the book, a friend of ours who we interviewed, who's in the book, George, we were showing him the sort of high energy burnout curve. And he's like, but that's if you have one project. Now, later on, if you have 3 different projects, there's probably something that's kind of bringing you into burnout mode. And conversely, to your point, there's something that's bringing potentially your energy up, and that sort of pull when you have all of those things going on. And then the last piece, we talked about was the sort of the double-edged sword of purpose. Like when you're doing your work that you believe in, it can be really hard to turn it off. Like the guilt of, oh, if I just spent a couple more hours, the impact that I would have.
That's right. Yeah, it's the turning it off and not feeling guilty is definitely a challenge. Like doing that sideways glance at my laptop and not going back to finish the article I've just started writing. I feel guilty about it, knowing that even if I went back, it's not like it would be any better. It's not like I would, be able to finish the thing the way I would want to finish it. And knowing that it's okay. I've been working on it all day in some way, or the last couple of days in some way. It's okay to put that down and go rejuvenate. So there is, I'm working on the guilty factor, because these things are all mine. I have control over all of these things, and that's, there's definitely a competing factor. That's a competing factor when it comes to my own rejuvenation and also having not feeling guilty when I sort of
Yeah.
close the laptop. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, it's a lifelong journey. And there is the little like hit of you can feel guilty, but there could be the endorphin rush that you get when you do the thing too. So it can be really tempting to be like, I want some more of that energy. So,
Yeah.
well, you are a model catalyst in so many ways. And I think it's awesome for people to hear that you still struggle with it, even with your sort of your dedicated routine. And also, like, it always seems like the grass is greener. Like if you're in the corporates, it can look like having all of your play, your own sandbox to play in, but actually there's challenges in both directions.
Totally. Yeah. When you're playing in someone else's sandbox, the constraints. It's nice. It's actually that grass looks really green to me right now. Those constraints, what you're going to get paid to play with those constraints. All the benefits that come with those constraints. You're like, that's pretty awesome. I know what I can do and I know what I probably can't do. And I can play out of bounds in my own stuff.
That's right.
When you don't have those things and you don't have someone who's designed and built the sandbox for you, everything is a sandbox.
That's right.
And also a kitty litter box. So
that's right. Totally. Yes. All right. Well, let's move on to the rapid fire round. So what do you wish that you had known at 20, or what piece of advice would you give to up and coming catalysts?
Yeah, honestly, when I was 20, I wish I had known to ask for help. I can think back to when I was 20 in college and some things that I got myself into, good things that I got myself into or talked myself into more likely, that I tried to do and failed at miserably because I just thought I could just do them. And I talked myself and others into allowing me to do those. So the asking for help is even still a struggle for me today, knowing myself and being pretty self-realized about what I'm good at and what I'm not so good at or don't want to do. But that would be a big one. Yeah.
I want to unpack that a little bit, because as I was like, so I heard you say that and I was casting back to when I was like, first starting out in my career.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if it's easy to say that now because we have sort of, both of you and I have our T disciplines where it's probably multiple T's at this point where we've proven ourselves in different domains.
Yeah.
But I imagine someone who's up and coming saying, it would be really scary for me to ask for help if I feel like I haven't proven myself and I really want to demonstrate that I deserve to be here or anything. Do you have any advice around that?
It's a great question. The way I think of it is this, and I can only relay like my own personal journey in this. Yeah. But the things I'm talking about are things probably where I talked myself and others into something, being a catalyst, and I've already connected dots. And I'm pretty sure had I asked for help I'm actually thinking about one very specific thing in my life. We don't need it here, but I'm pretty sure if I would have asked for help from my friends on this thing, people that I knew would be really, really good at it, they would have been like, oh yeah, totally. And even more, I think for people who feel insecure about that, giving other people ownership and allowing them to help you and allowing them to feel like they're getting value by helping is huge. We all want to help. Any people who aren't catalysts want to help other people, totally. Right? And I think that's what's going on in my head is I know people would have loved to have helped with some of the things that I think I failed miserably at in life in general. They would have loved to have helped. And if I would have given them some ownership, that's how I work anyways, I don't need it all. They would have been like, oh, amazing. Thanks so much for bringing me into this thing. I'm so stoked to work on this and make this thing amazing. I think that's the key is, don't sell yourself short. Don't think, yeah, sure, you may have to prove yourself in something, but do that by working with someone on it and giving them, some share of it, some ownership of it with you and allowing them to help you and having them feel good about helping you, I think is huge. Yeah, I think it works every time.
It's so key. Well, one of the keywords that you said there was I reached out to my friends. And I think that it's an important nuance for younger people to be like, it may not be that you go to your direct boss because that might not always be safe.
That's right.
But I did think as I was listening to you, it's like, yeah, there were people that I definitely went to for help or that just stepped in and offered help that I accepted at that point, which can also be hard because it can feel like, oh, you don't think I know what I'm doing when I'm trying to prove myself.
Totally.
And then I think the other piece is work isn't just about the domain expertise. Work is about the getting shit done.
That's right.
And
yeah.
so if you're bringing other people along with you and you're getting shit done, I don't care how you got it done. You got it done. You used all your resources. Great.
Absolutely. And if you're working in the corporate world where you feel like you need to prove something, proving that you can actually bring the right resources in without spending a bunch more time and getting shit done, early, if not on time, and better than expected. I mean, that's everything.
Everything, totally. And demonstrating the self-knowledge that like, this is what I'm good at. My humility allows me to bring other people in because we're all going to that thing.
Totally.
Awesome. So what would you say to, executives or leaders in different organizations about finding their catalysts?
I think, first of all, finding your catalysts as a leader, I don't think it's all that hard. I think it's pretty easy because the people who probably pop up naturally to you is like, oh yeah, that person seems to be really on top of things, or, is delivering things, or, they have something really interesting to say. Probably a catalyst. Not always the case. It might be people who are just managing up. But I think, certainly working with catalyst constellations is a great way to find your catalyst. But outside of that, I think listening for people's points of views and asking deep, hard questions and seeing how they respond to those things is a good way to find and maybe nurture catalysts. But I think the second part of that is working with catalysts. I think the best thing a manager, a C-level person, a VP could do to work with their catalysts is sort of kind of where we were just talking about, is open up that network, sort of push catalysts to use their networks, to use what they're really good at, to, build bridges, ask them, challenge them to do some of these things, and to use what they already have, and see if you can get more out of that. Now, that's not to say like, a manager or VP C-level person should just pair you with someone, a catalyst. They should probably ask you, hey, who else would you need on your team to make this thing explode, to make this thing a rocket ship, or a rocket ship out of a skateboard? Who else would you need? Do you think you could use some help doing that? And a catalyst might say, and a good catalyst should say, ooh, that's a great question. I think I could make this skateboard a rocket ship with like this and this and this and this.
Yeah.
I think a good manager will listen to that and say, great, let's help you nurture your network to bring those things to bear. And let me keep you all along, on this path, and keep asking you challenging questions and see if we can actually help you by asking you challenging questions, by sort of helping to, solidify whatever that concept is. So that's what I think anyways.
Yeah, it's so interesting. So the data backs all of that up. And one interesting point for those who are listening is catalysts will follow managers who know how to manage them that way, yes. Right? It's like creating the playground, giving them space to bring some of the ideas and opportunities, but then also asking the provoking questions to make it better. Right. But then giving them not unlimited resources, but enough room and support so that they can. And when they do that, catalysts are unstoppable at driving impact. So spot on. Yeah.
Totally. Just a quick story.
Yeah.
My best manager of all time, Carrie Ann Mikos, which is her name now, at Oracle. This is in between 2000 and 2003. Right? Best manager of all time. I'll send this to her when she's done. That was exactly what she did. She nurtured, she stayed out of the way when she saw things being catalyzed and fires being started, and good fires. She just sort of would nurture, she'd protect, but she'd also like put you up to, and say, hey, VP, this is happening. Maybe you should put some fuel in this fire, and he would. And Gary Newman, who was at Oracle time, he'd put a little fuel in that fire, and then she'd bring us over to another senior VP or EVP, and she'd do the same thing. And she was never asking for things for herself ever. It was always like, let's see what happens. Let's see what happens with this energy in this fire. And when she saw catalysts, there were a handful of us on her team. when she just saw, she would pair us, she would ask for more, she would ask challenging questions, she would put another challenge in front of us, she would give us, she would sort of, tout something to a VP, and we would find ourselves in an interesting meeting. And it was just like, it was still to this day with the best team I was ever on and the best manager of all time. Yeah.
Amen. And I'm going to give a shout out to my one, Todd Achilles. And I ended up following him from one startup to two more startups to T-Mobile. And I also have to say for Chad, from one of our other previous podcasts, he's looking at the lens of having been in the military and how that intersects with Catalyst. And this leader had been also in the military. And I think that servant leadership is a super interesting component to that. Yeah. All right. So what's the worst part about being a Catalyst?
All right. Worst part about being a Catalyst, I think, is, I sort of mentioned it before, is talking yourself into things, or thinking that you can, just do something as well as someone else, or like going it alone. I think Catalysts do that a lot. I think Catalysts, because we move really, really fast, often we start something and kind of go it alone, and expect a lot of ourselves, and maybe even expect a lot of others, but we definitely expect a lot of ourselves. And I think that's the worst part about, that's the most challenging, maybe not the worst, it's the most challenging part of being Catalyst. I love moving fast. I love ideating. I love creating concepts. I love starting things. And every time I go it alone, next to nothing happens. And it's great. I learn a lot. I do some cool stuff maybe, but like nothing happens that, that the way I thought it should happen. And I burn myself out, and I sort of, sort of flagellate, right? Whipping myself like, oh shit, I woulda, coulda, shoulda, and that's, I think, the most challenging part, is sort of being a Catalyst and everything starts as like going it alone. And that's not the right way to do it, I think.
Yeah, it's really not. And it's the going a little bit slow and going with others to go faster and more successful. And, what I just heard you say is why I'm so passionate about, like, the takeaway for me of the book is the self-compassion piece too.
Yeah.
Because we're whatever we're doing it in service of something, and it can be a hard road. Right. What's the best part about being a Catalyst?
Just that the best part is I know where my energy comes from. I know where my energy comes from. And I know that especially as a connector, when I make a connection and I have a really good conversation with someone about their needs, and I feel like I can actually make a difference, it is awesome. I mean, the advising things with startups, right? Yeah, it's diversified income, right? It's not today's income that I'm using for any, like, I don't make any money off of that stuff now, maybe someday. But I know for sure that every time I have a conversation and I'm able to like bring some other context in that conversation, or another person that might be able to help in some way, I know I've created massive value for them. And like my endorphins like spike through the roof, and I'm like, holy shit, that was so awesome. I learned so much and I helped so much. And I'm just so happy that I was able to make this connection, and I can back away and know like it's going to keep repeating, and it's going to keep repeating and repeating and repeating, for someone who just needed something. And that's my favorite part. Yeah.
You are so good at it. And I just have such deep gratitude, like on behalf of the world and all the people that you've helped. I mean, all the people who go through the MBA program, all the people that you and I have worked with before, your generosity of spirit combined with your like actual deep wisdom. Also the listeners of this podcast, like you're just always willing to help people progress, and you're great at it, Justin. So
thank you. Thank you. It is my favorite thing to do. Yeah.
Having had you on our advisory board, I can say firsthand how great you are.
Thank you.
What's your call to action for our listeners?
Well, my call to action is A, go ask for help. B, if you're interested in helping me, but not helping me financially, but actually even helping me with, giving me feedback. What should I do? What have you seen? What do you like? I would love for you to go to plantfully.com, just check out what we have, or go onto Amazon and type in Plantfully Systems. check out what we have. I'm just as happy with feedback as I am with people buying products. So what do you see that you like? What do you see that you don't like? How does it make you feel? What do you take today? What do you do today? I'm just interested in people and what they need and seeing if I can help to address those needs. So here we are.
Awesome. Well, I personally can't wait to see where this enterprise goes, as well as all of your amazing irons in the fire.
Yeah.
And so thanks for having the conversation with us today, Justin.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me, Shannon.
Yeah. And to our audience, thanks so much for listening. If you'd like to learn more about how to accelerate positive change, go to our website at catalystconstellations.com. And be sure, of course, to check out the book that Justin was talking about and showing on the video, Move Fast, Break Shit, Burn Out, the Catalyst Guide to Working Well. And if you think you have other catalysts in your life, hit the share button and send a link their way. Thanks again.